All right, awesome. I guess maybe, so I'm Richard Ma. I'm the CEO and founder of Quantstamp. Started the company like 5.5 years ago. And today it's like $1 billion security company. And we're kind of a proud auditor for Avalanche. And this is Sebi. Do you want to do your self-intro?
Yeah. Oh, does this work? Hello? Hello, hello? OK. Hey. Hi, everyone. Really appreciate everyone being here at this late time on a Friday. I'm Sebastian. I'm head of Quantstamp Germany. And it's going to be my pleasure to have this chat on Web3 security.
Cool. Awesome. And also, Sebastian, he's also the CEO of Chainproof, which is our Web3 insurance company. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Right. So the big problem in Web3 security, as you may all know, is that auditors are considered not to have maybe skin in the game. So at Quantstamp, we wanted to change that, and we created our own insurance company. So if a project does an audit with us and they pass the audit, meaning that they fix all the bugs in a proper way, we can offer them regulated insurance policies backstopped by traditional insurance companies like Munich Re, which is the world's largest reinsurer. So that's a key differentiator to projects that just get an audit and might not necessarily fix issues. We want to focus on bringing to the main stage those projects that do a great job in terms of security.
Yeah, and then I guess because it's like the last talk of the conference, I think, I just wanted to like get a show of hands. Like, how many people are from like projects, like DeFi projects, and like, okay, and how many people are like investors? Okay, and then are there any like security people in the audience? Okay, and I guess are there any like students? Okay, all right, okay, it's a good mix. Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's a great mix. So maybe I'll kick this off by asking, like, how does the audit process look like?
Yeah, so maybe I can actually use our audit for Avalanche as an example. So projects usually reach out to us about like a couple months before they decide to launch. And they usually like send us their source code, and usually it's like 90% complete or 80% complete. And then we usually have a call with them, and we basically like give them some suggestions, and like they usually explain how their projects work. And we audit about 200 projects a year. So our guys are like pretty experienced in different verticals, and we try to choose someone that's like pretty experienced. And often on the call, we'll have like good suggestions. And then like when they kind of, we basically make a quote, like how much time it will take. And then usually like a couple weeks before the audit starts, we have another call with them and basically like go through the process and make some adjustments. And then during the audit, like every day, we're basically talking to the project and helping them to like fix different things. And basically where Quantstamp comes in a lot of the time is that because we've seen so many different architectures, we usually give some pretty good suggestions for like how to build stuff in a more secure way. And then usually like during the audit, we'll also give ideas for like gas savings or like using some more battle-tested code. And then like after the audit, we basically, once the project has fixes, we'll go and like help them with the fixes. So, and at the end, we publish an audit report. And for about half the projects, we'll release that to the public and be part of their like launch. And for the other half, we like keep it private. And so it's like, depending on the project stage, they determine whether they want to publish the report or not. That's sort of the process.
Awesome. Does anyone here have questions regarding the process, like anything which was maybe unclear or you want us to dig deeper into? Because this is like a chat, so we would like to maybe ask the audience if there's any questions. If not, we're going to go to the next one.
Yeah, feel free to jump in with questions. Yeah, so, oh, here we go.
Let me just give you the mic.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a question. It's regarding more like the how the smart contract behaves over time, and not just like in a fixed like 3, 4, or 5 blocks, but like throughout like 10,000 blocks from now, and also like the behavior of the variables or like the interaction of multiple smart contracts for a user journey.
Yeah, so maybe I can start, and I think Sebi can probably jump in. So like for a lot of DeFi projects, they actually like leverage other projects. So for example, if you have like a perpetual trading project, it might have oracles, it might be using other liquidity pools. And so like often when we audit the project, they'll have like a low TVL, like low starting amount of deposits. And then a lot of the like type of exploits for DeFi projects, they actually happen when they have more TVL, like later, like as it evolves over time. So often the things we like catch for these projects, they actually happen later when there's like a specific set of like conditions like in the market, like maybe the market is really volatile, plus they have a really big TVL, and that enables some types of like economic exploits. And then I guess,
yeah. One other thing which is important is hard forks, right? For instance, when new opcodes are released or changes in like gas pricing are done, it often affects our previous customers. So what we do is that we keep, for all of the audits that we have, we keep tags regarding potential issues that might come up in the future as hard forks come, in production. And whenever there's such a situation, we reach out to customers and tell them, like, are you prepared for this next hard fork, right? Have you thought about what the, like gas changes, how they are going to affect your functions and stuff like that. In addition to that, one piece which is really important that we're thinking about really often is basically monitoring those projects, and looking if there's anything suspicious going on, right? So we leverage some of our partners for that, and whenever we see any suspicious activities, we reach out to our customers and notify them and try to work with them to find a solution, right? Does that answer your question? Awesome.
Cool. And then, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so the next question is, I guess many of you are familiar that many projects are open source. So a lot of people basically fork a project, they do some changes, right? And then they want to launch, but they want to be careful about it. So they come to us for an audit. And more often than not, they say, hey, we've forked a very secure project. We've just done a few changes. Can you audit the diff, right? So like the question is like what do you think about like diff audits?
Yeah, I think like this was pretty common on Avalanche actually, because Avalanche had its own like DeFi summer with Frog Nation and Wonderland and all these projects, and then there were a lot of forks that were coming to Avalanche, and so when they were asking for these diff audits, like they would change, let's say like 100 lines of code and try to launch it, but often like for us, when we're doing the audit, we actually still have to do the whole audit, because sometimes the changes they make, they have a lot of interactions with the rest of the smart contract. And so like I think these diff audits, they're classified into roughly like 3 categories. One is sometimes they literally just change the name and some like non-functional parts of the contract. So that's really common with like Uniswap forks. And then sometimes they like add functionality, and so for those, we've basically been doing full audits for them. And then there's like a third category, which is, they're using some functionality from one blockchain, and then when they move it to another one, it actually has like undesired behavior. So like recently, there's like a DeFi summer happening on ZK Sync. And there, the gas limits are really low, and it's actually breaking a bunch of these like straight up fork projects. So yeah, when we get them, we still basically do the full evaluation of the project and like try to do diligence to founders, because The other issues that arises with these fork projects is that there's a lot of rug pulls and scams. So it's not even that like security-wise there's a problem, but it's due to having centralized access to the funds. They can like rug pull the funds. And this is something that happened recently to a project called Merlin on zkSync. So yeah, try to avoid those things.
Makes sense, yeah. The third question is actually connected to what you've asked before, and it has to do with how the contract evolves in terms of updates, right? There's always updates to the code, and those updates might be a few lines of code, they might be more new features that involve multiple contracts and so on. And yeah, basically, what can developers do in order to avoid introducing buggy code?
Yeah, so I think like for actually a lot of the exploits that happen in the ecosystem, they're from these like very small updates. So whether recently, I think a couple of days ago, there was an exploit with Level Finance, and then like late last year, there was an exploit with Nomad. And both of those cases, they just pushed a couple of lines of code and like deployed it. And so like whenever we work with projects, we always try to counsel them to have like a really good DevOps process for small changes. Because when the projects go through an audit, there's a lot of focus placed on it. And so it's going through this like very rigorous process. But in between audits, like there's projects or developers that would just push to master and then like deploy that. And so that's actually like one of the biggest risk factors for like projects, which is they think they're making a small innocuous change, but actually it has all these downstream effects. And before, like maybe there's a vulnerability that wasn't possible with the way the code base was set up, and this one line change, it enables exploit. So like for developers, I think there's a couple of things you can do. One is to like write tests that cover like more things, and we see over and over again that the tests that developers make, they're like very specific and only covers like certain scenarios, and they don't really work anymore when they update like the code. And then I think the other part is just to have like robust internal like DevOps and code review process so that no one person can just like push the master and then like deploy, even if they're the CTO. But yeah, I guess maybe you have additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it goes in the same direction. Of course, I guess no developers really like writing tests. Of course, there are exceptions, but in general, writing tests is not seen as something which is fun. So there are definitely ways in which you can automate and boost your test suite, and that is via integrating, basically fuzzing into your CI/CD pipeline, such that once you push changes, those changes are going to be fuzzed, right? And you don't have any like labor-intensive efforts that you need to put in there. It's just computing resources. And in addition to that, we've seen many projects where they don't really know how good their test suite is, and the only metric that they're using is coverage. What we've discovered across like more than 600 audits is that coverage is not a good indicator of test suite quality. It's good to look at coverage, but look at also if you have proper assertions, if you have tests that are covering not just units, but also integrating different parts of the system, right? Because you just can have unit tests covering 100%, that's not enough. One way you can automatically check how good your test suite is just run a mutation testing tool on it, right? Mutation testing changes your code, runs the test suite, and sees if your test suite can detect those kind of issues. And we've been having like tremendous success with such tools, basically discovering bugs and showing the customers the gaps in their test suites.
Oh.
All right, so like moving on to like towards the last questions, we have like 5 minutes left, and of course like we would also want to hear from you. But yeah, one thing which is like happening nowadays is, we're talking about developers, right? But how about users, right? How can users avoid getting wrecked?
Yeah, I think since DeFi summer, users, there's definitely been a ton of turnover in users because there's been so many security incidents and rug pulls and hacks. I would say 3 main things, for users. One is be careful of anonymous projects, especially anonymous projects that have a lot of access to the funds. So whenever we do an audit, we always label the kind of privileged access, and we put it almost as the first issue in every single audit. And for users, it's one of the most important things because you don't necessarily need to lose your funds to a hack. The project can just run away with it. And so I think it's actually still one of the most common ways that people lose money in crypto. And then the second thing I would say is if you're putting your hard-earned money into a project, always read the audit report and just read the summary section, because we try to distill the whole of the report into the summary, and so it's actually a really good thing to read, and it takes 1 minute to read it, and it's made for laymen. Yeah, and then I think lastly is just recently, for a lot of DeFi ecosystems, there's kind of a drop in TVL because it's a bear market. And so it's still, I think, important to go to the more innovative projects, right? So if you're depositing into the 100th fork of Uniswap, it's probably not going to do that well. But if the project has some more innovative technology, or they're building something more interesting, I think those are still going to do better. So, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that is this common misconception in the space that if a project has an audit or has more audits, it means that it's automatically secure, right? This is a very big misconception that basically does not hold true, because there's no one in the space to regulate and force projects to basically fix the issues that are found during audits. So a project can get an audit, they have many critical findings, and they can say, well, I mean, it would take me another 3-4 months to fix all of this, so I don't care. I'm just going to launch it because I'm rushing to launch to not lose the cycle, the current cycle or something, right? So this happened a lot in the bull market, and it led to a lot of hacks. So as Richard said, it's really important to open the audit report and at least check the first couple of pages to see, are the issues that were found actually fixed, or are they just acknowledged, which means they accept the risk and they know that it could be an exploit, right?
Yeah, and this is part of the fight against evil. It's something more than half of the audits we do, they have some significant finding that is not fixed. And so then the audit report becomes this blueprint for hackers to try to use those existing information and make a more severe hack. And so definitely on the project side, it's pretty important to fix all the stuff we find. And I think for investors, it's it's a pretty good criteria to see if the project is investable, because often once they have one of these exploits, the token price goes down a lot. And so it's do you want to take that extra risk for your investment? But yeah, I guess.
Yeah, just wanted to open the floor up if there are any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. So my question. Oh,
it's not on.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is, when you was talking about the audits, who actually requests the audit? So if I am looking to invest into a project and I want to ensure that everything is correct, can I come to you and say, can you audit that project? Or is it the owners or the creators of the project that have to request it? And if I was to request it as the investor, do I then pay for it? How does it work?
Yeah, so like most of the time the project requests it because the security audit is still like fairly expensive. And for investors, like, so we do work with some investors, but usually it's like, we've already due diligence, you know, like thousands of projects, and out of that, we've audited about 600. And so most projects that like people are thinking of investing in is something that we either due diligence or already audited. And so it's like far more cost effective, probably just to like reach out to us and see if we due diligence it, and then we can basically like provide that for like a very low cost. And then usually it's like if you're an investor in a project, it's still better to ask them to get an audit with us because it's like, you know, just makes more financial sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Last question.
You do have I mean, the client of your audits is the project itself. But you do have an agency problem here. Imagine that the project who wants to be audited is like a Ponzi scheme or something. You're getting paid by them. So you won't tell in the abstract, this is a Ponzi, run from it, never watch this thing twice.
We do. We write that in the abstract. So, so basically, like when the project is like not a good project, what we actually do is we like due diligence them when they like come to us, and like if we can see it's a scam, we actually just reject it. So we don't even audit it.
You don't audit it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then sometimes like in very rare cases, we actually find out during the audit. And then what we do is we write this like super red audit report. And we basically like put the summary. It's like, oh, don't launch this, like don't use this. And so that's sort of like part of our like values, because you know it's part of the fight, which is like if we don't do that, then the users aren't going to know.
Okay, and your credibility will plummet.
And then, yeah, so we sort of like, we've been doing that for like more than 5 years. It's just like people don't find out about it because like we're not tweeting that we're basically like due diligencing these projects and doing this behind the scenes. But it is like definitely happening. Yeah.
Thank you.